So it seems like we're getting more Trump Derangement Syndrome coming out of Hollywood. And this report's coming from Bounding into Comics, written by John F. Trent. Wonder Woman 1984 will feature parallels between Donald Trump and villain Maxwell Lord. The main enemy is capitalism. Oh, fuck me. Okay, so this whole Max Lord being a Trump parallel is honestly nothing new. Several channels have talked about it, and I believe Midnight's Edge did as well, but this is really just kind of confirmation. And where we're seeing this coming from is this Collider interview. 20 things to know about Wonder Woman 1984, from fanny packs to Trump parallels. So we have this article from last year coming from Cosmic Book News, and apparently the test screenings were pretty terrible. And this article contains spoilers about the plot. Now, I remember reading some of the stuff, and it pretty much sounds like it has a very monkey's paw kind of style plot, which is the reason why we get Steve Trevor back. And also it's the reason why Cheetah becomes Cheetah. I want to say Chitara, but I know that's totally something completely different. Now, I'm just going to hit the highlights of the Collider article because it's pretty long, and the main things I want to talk about is the whole thing where it talks about Trump and capitalism being the bad guy. So let's get into it. The world of 2018 feels unrecognizable from our current point in time. It certainly is. Between the beer bug and what's been going on with these riots, yes, I mean, 2020 is definitely in a very different place than what we saw in 2018. We are just 2 years into Donald Trump's US presidency, which begets the immigration crisis, along with the Mexican-American border, talk of collusion between the Trump election campaign and Russian officials, the public-facing resurgence of white supremacy. Now, it'd be one thing if this person was referring to people like Robin DiAngelo and the shit we're seeing that's coming from Antifa these days. Yeah, I would say yes, there's definitely been a resurgence of white supremacy, but not in the ways that they are thinking. And quite frankly, those people hold absolutely zero institutional power, and it's being blown way out of proportion. And the height of the Me Too movement, which pretty much has died a very silent death at this point. No one's really talking about Me Too anymore. And it's probably because people have kind of moved on to other things because of the beer bug. Wonder Woman 1984 director Patty Jenkins was thinking about this moment on the UK set of her sequel to the 2017 DC Comics blockbuster, Like the Rest of Us, blissfully unaware that in just 2 years, a global pandemic would force the public to quarantine, into quarantine isolation, dismantle the US economy, which is funny because they're talking about the whole thing with capitalism being evil and shit, and lead to a situation where a sitting president supports withholding funds for the Postal Service to prevent mail-in voting. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the whole post office thing, mainly because I simply just don't know enough about it to really give you an informed opinion on it. But my understanding, though, is that basically what they just said was bullshit. So if you call me out in the comments for being a dumbass and not knowing what the fuck I'm talking about, I kind of deserve that one. At the same time, just as Jenkins was thinking about the world of 1984 in relation to 2018, the problems of the past maintain parallels to the problems of the present. Now, I can't really say that I see parallels between what was going on in 2018 and 1984. I really don't see it. I see a lot of parallels to what we're seeing right now with 2020 and what happened with the 1920s, because we had a pandemic, issues with race, some turbulence with the economy. So there is some actual parallels there, but I'm not seeing it with 2018 and 1984. Could be wrong, though. In the 80s, a time of excess and drive to achieve the American dream, it was like we thought for sure it could go on forever and there was going to be no price and you could just have exponential growth. The filmmaker says on the set of 1984. But as Jenkins and her characters realize, there is a price. That whole comment about exponential growth definitely sounds like a Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is, quote. Obviously, markets are going to grow and they're going to shrink, but I guess depending on how things go, I think you can have exponential growth if you don't fuck things up along the way. But I don't know. I'm not an economist, so don't quote me on that. I think in that way, we're talking about then and we're talking about right now, she adds. We're talking about what we're dealing with right now because that struggle is very much alive in our psyche. I'm not really sure what she's talking about, but okay. These days, Hollywood is still scrambling to figure out how to bounce back in the age of the COVID-19 pandemic. AMC Theaters plans to reopen American cinemas this week, but who knows what potential woes this will cause down the line in terms of the national infection rate. I think if the theaters play their cards right, I mean, I know that they're maintaining social distancing within theaters and people have to wear a mask. So I don't see this contributing to the problem. I mean, this is the thing that sucks is that our lives have to go on, pandemic or not. Our economy needs to continue. And the only reason why things have started to waffle a bit is because of the closures, people not being able to work. It's definitely taken a hit to our economy. And you can't blame capitalism for that. You really can't. These are decisions that were being made by government and not markets. Still, at this point in time, Wonder Woman 1984 maintains its October 2nd release date with a virtual DC fandom event set for this Saturday, August 22nd, to hype up the blockbuster event and unveil a new trailer. Now, fandom is something I haven't had an opportunity to talk much about recently. It's something I did sign up for. There's a lot of interesting panels specifically about diversity and inclusion that is actually going to be coming out in September. But I'm probably going to sign up for the Wonder Woman panel so I can go and see the trailer. There is some interesting stuff, but mainly I want to see what they're talking about because they have the dude who wrote 12 Years a Slave, and he's going to be doing this book. It's something I haven't had an opportunity to talk about, but I want to. I know that there's rumors that they're planning on bringing back Milestone, and so we shall see. These are the things that I'm rather curious about, and I will be talking about in the future. Okay, so there's a few things in this interview I want to highlight before we call it quits. First of all, why the year 1984 specifically? Might it have something to do with George Orwell's futuristic dystopia? We should have that conversation after you see the film. Producer Charles Roven. In any case, 1984 was at the peak of America's power and pride. Associated producer Anna, I'm not going to try and say her last name, mentions. It was everything commercialism, passion, wealth, even violence was in excess. And I'm not going to disagree with any of those comments. I think that's very much highlights some of the things that happened in the 80s, especially like with action movies and whatnot. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. It was a decade of greed and desire. In simpler terms, it was humanity at its best and worst, she says. Okay, so the George Orwell reference, I don't fully get, because I feel like we're closer to that now in 2020 with the way cancel culture has progressed. And you have people going on saying, 2 + 2 = 5. And this was an actual thing that was going around on the internet. And that is actually from the book. And 2018 does not feel like George Orwell's, 1984. It definitely felt like it was getting close, but it has gotten worse in those past 2 years. So yeah, I mean, from today's standpoint of 2020, yes, we are definitely closer to 1984, but it's a Wonder Woman movie. It shouldn't have anything to do with that fucking book. Anyway, on to something else. Now, this is the best part of the interview because it starts talking about who the villain is. Who is the villain of this next chapter? Well, there are multiple antagonists, but the real enemy, one might argue, is capitalism. You mean that very thing that allows you to be able to make a movie like this? I don't get creatives and their deep hatred of capitalism, because it enables them to be able to be successful. I mean, God damn, seriously. It's so dumb. It's like when Mags Visaggio complains about capitalism. It's like, lady, you write comic books for a living. You should appreciate capitalism, because without it, you wouldn't have a job. So one thing I think is pretty funny is that these creative types, a lot of them are socialists, and they are being propped up by the very thing that they disdain. It's a beautiful irony. Anyway, Game of Thrones veteran Pablo Pascal plays comic book villain Maxwell Lord. Only in the context of the film, he's the president of Black Gold International. He's the king of phony infomercials. I don't remember Trump in the 80s doing phony infomercials, so I'm not sure. I mean, that was definitely a thing that happened in the 80s, but that was not a Trump thing that I recall. If people are chasing after dreams of wealth, power, and fame, then Max is selling those dreams. He is the desperate, self-obsessed fulfillment entrepreneur who runs a business selling the American dream. So in a lot of ways, I feel like that paragraph was definitely an attack on the American dream. And here's the thing that I find so funny is that if America was such a terrible country, why do people still immigrate here or want to come here? They brought up the whole thing with the migrant caravan. Why do you think those people were wanting to come to America? Because they want a better life. And the American dream is still alive. It may be on life support, but it's still alive. And yes, I do think that we have problems that need to be fixed. I mean, we are seeing the death of the middle class, but that's a conversation for another thing, and it's something I'm not an expert on, but it is happening. But I think the key thing here that I need to mention is that you can be successful in this country today. I mean, look at people on YouTube. We have people that make content for a living on YouTube and can make a lot of money doing that, and that is pretty freaking amazing. Expect parallels between Max and Trump. Photos of the fired reality TV star. Was he really fired? I don't really recall that, and I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, I know that he had his Apprentice show, but I don't think he was fired from it. Anyway, I guess it really doesn't matter. With a trail of bankruptcy filings, adorn costume designer Lindy Hemmings' workspace. Now, I want to talk about the bankruptcy thing real quick. I find it's funny that his opponents always bring that up. Oh, he's a failed businessman and he's got a lot of bankruptcies. I've known a few millionaires in my life, believe it or not. And a lot of these people, when they go and start businesses, and Trump has started a lot of businesses, and you expect all of them to succeed, and he's not going to have any kind of failures. Anyway, bankruptcy is used as a tool. And another thing too, oddly enough, is that sometimes they get sued a lot. And the reason why these things happen is because these people are willing to take risks. And sometimes that's just the way it plays out. You get sued, and sometimes you declare bankruptcy. I worked for a company that was like that. It went bankrupt, but that's how it goes sometimes. Donald Trump, of course, she says, while discussing sketches of Max's business attire. Well, that's helpful to look at a bit, isn't it? There is something about the period of Donald Trump and being a businessman, being rather sleazy a little bit and a bit goofy and a lot of talk. So that's why he's there. There's more, but I oughta just, she trails off, zip it, comes to mind. Okay, so let's be honest here. The only reason why Maxwell Lord is being paralleled to Donald Trump is because the man's president, and yes, he existed in the 80s, and the left has this huge hate boner for him. They really do. And you know, when I hear shit like this, it makes me not want to see the movie. It really doesn't. I mean, the movie could be, I would say, great, but I doubt it based off of the early screenings, unless they went and fixed some shit. So who knows? I don't know. I'm debating on whether I want to go and see it just to do a review for the channel. But at this point, why would I want to give them my money? I don't want to encourage this bad behavior. And if you want me to do a review, let me know, and I will. But overall, if you're out there, are you planning on seeing this movie? When you hear shit like this, does it make you want to go see it? Does it turn you off? I can't blame you if you don't want to see it. I'm tired of this, Trump nonsense that is like everyone's screeching at. I mean, it's really funny watching what's going on at the DNC and the way they're just trying to make like how they're trying to say everything is like super terrible and it's all Trump's fault. And it's like, no, it's really not. I mean, it's not. The nonsense with these riots is the fault of Democrats because they're happening in Democratic cities and they're not doing anything about it. You can't blame a lot of this stuff on Trump at all. Anyway, that's all I got. And for the record, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not. I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Democrat either. But let me tell you, at this point, I never thought I would say I'm going to vote for the lesser of two evils, but I fucking am. Because at this point, the Democratic Party has gone nuts. And they need to be spanked pretty hard by the Republicans to let them know that you're out of bounds. This is not what normal people want anymore. Anyway, sorry about the political rant at the end. I'll catch you next time, folks. Wow, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Well, if you could do me a huge favor while you're here, if you're new to the channel, go and click that subscribe button. Bash that bell for instant notifications. And Hulk. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this video. I even have a P.O. box if you want to go and send me some fan mail. And yes, I finally have received some. Figured I should probably go and update that just because, it's been some time. Well, I've finally done it. I've gone and launched my new website, so go and head over to pixelnation.io. There you'll be able to find all my current videos, even some past live streams, as well as the thought of the day, week, or month, depending on when I actually get around to writing something. Also, in the next couple weeks, I'll be launching my new forums, so keep an eye out for that. I would love to give a huge shout out to all my Subscribe Star supporters, because without you, I'd still be making content. But in all seriousness, I do appreciate your support and your help. And I would like to give a huge shout out to my big spenders, Toxic Manflu and MarjieSmiles, and ArthurPotatoeHammer for supporting me at the Take My Money Damn It tier. Thank you very much. You three are awesome.